Good evening, everyone. Thank you for your patience as we dealt with a few technical issues here at the school. I'd like to call to order the May 17th meeting of the New Canaan Board of Education. Okay. Next is comments from the public. To ensure the public's right to be heard, the board has set aside time during the meeting for public comments. Oh, sorry. Okay. Going back to, we need to approve the agenda for this evening. Can I have a motion? Brendan, second. Sherry, all in favor? Yeah, we did that. Yeah, the same attendance. Okay, so moving on to public comments. 2 minutes will be allotted to each speaker and a maximum of 15 minutes to each subject. So for those participating virtually, please raise your hand using the raise hand feature if you would like to make public comment. And when Dr. Lutzy moves you over, just please to be sure to state your name. Thank you.
Hi, are you addressing me? Hi.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Rita Bettina. Can I start? Okay, sorry. I am speaking tonight to voice my support for the Board of Education on school start time. My husband and I do not advocate any particular start times. Instead, we trust that our elected BOE, the superintendent and his team, are considering perspectives across a variety of different groups and are doing their best to balance competing needs and put forth a plan that best serves our community as a whole. We're also aware of the time, energy, and due diligence expended over the past 4 years and the numerous studies that support their plan. My husband and I have lived in New Canaan for almost 2 years now, and we love this town. We both work, we have 3 children, and have had experience with 3 different public school systems. 2 of our kids are college graduates, and 1 is a 7th grader at Saks. We've been around the block. Now, there have been times when we haven't been happy with the school system's decision for start times or other policies, but we also realize there is a bigger picture and other groups and community needs to consider. We never expected the school system to bend to our individual circumstances. Instead, we made accommodations and sacrifices that were consistent with our priorities. We are very concerned about the forthcoming referendum to cut the Board of Ed budget under the premise of opening a new conversation on start times, as well as the valuable time and money being spent on it. We feel that an elected board and a highly respected and qualified superintendent are effectively being undermined and circumvented. Coming off a school year where many children were not able to attend school in person, Dr. Lutzy and the BOE were successful in keeping students and faculty safe and learning in person. We find it disheartening that people are questioning their integrity, motivation, and ability to balance the needs of our community. Everything we've seen has shown this group of public servants and dedicated professionals has had the best intentions of the children, faculty, and families in mind. Our question is, why do we elect a Board of Education and hire a superintendent only to allow them to be overruled by one group if they don't like a decision that was made with the holistic needs of the community in mind? We believe this referendum is a misuse of town resources and, frankly, a waste of time and money that could really be invested in our children. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm not sure who's next, so it's just Jacqueline. So we'll ask him to introduce yourself. I think you just came off mute, whoever it is.
Can you hear me all right?
Yep, got it.
Just checking. Thanks, Houston. Appreciate it. So first of all, thanks everyone for making the time this evening. Hope everybody is well. My name is Steve Summers, 610 Cheese Spring Road, and my wife and I have a 7th grader, Lily, and a 9th grader, Jack. We first wanted to take a quick minute of many minutes to voice our support for passing the Board of Education budget in full, including fully funding for Healthy Start Times. We do not support line item veto. We support the Board of Education's budget when you proposed it, when the Board of Finance approved it, and when the Town Council voted for it. And we support it again now. Finally, I know a lot of folks have to speak this evening, so want to be brief, but did want to take a minute to thank Dr. Lutzy and the rest of the Board of Education for all you're doing to provide our children with a phenomenal education. Sincere appreciation for taking the time to listen to us and to support our children. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Next is someone else with Jacqueline's name. So let's see. There you go.
Hello.
Yep.
Hi. My name is Andrea Wilderman. And again, I want to thank everyone for the efforts that have gone into this time chain. I have taught elementary school for over 10 years, and currently I'm teaching pre-K. As a teacher of young students, I've seen that earlier start times provide better learning opportunities. And I've always structured the classroom so that reading and math is in the morning, because this is when the kids can maintain greater focus and concentration. As an early educator for many years, and I don't see how a start time of 7:45 would be detrimental at all. In fact, I can only see the benefits of starting earlier for the younger kids. And having grown up in New Canaan and loving it, I also know that South used to start at 9 o'clock. I guarantee there were similar anxieties when South School changed from 9 to 8, but we have that living example of how well it's worked out. And now we are talking only about a 15-minute earlier than South. As a teacher of younger students, I fully support the earlier start times. I know change is hard, and I recognize there will be individual families having to adjust their schedules around. But when we put the focus where it should be, which is what's best for the over 4,000 K through 12 students, I do believe it would be these new proposed school times. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Next we have Kelly.
Hello, my name is Kelly Levine, and I am here to express why I would like to support the BOE in passing the budget in full and adjusting school start times, and why I am against revisiting against elementary school starting at 9:15 a.m. First, I should tell you I have a child in 6th grade, one in 3rd grade, and one in 1st grade. I believe that starting at 9:15 a.m. for elementary students does not optimize the morning hours when my elementary age sons are most alert and ready to engage. They run off to school eager, and most mornings are at South by 7:55 a.m., the earliest time they are allowed to arrive on campus. Second, it means school will end at 3:45, minimizing any downtime at home before sports and activities. Our children attend a neighborhood school that they walk to, and the time they have to play after school and the spontaneous outside play with neighbors that we have is priceless and special and very important to the culture of our school and neighborhood. I feel like this time would be jeopardized with later start times for elementary students. And finally, with a dual working parent household, having a 9:15 late start for our youngest children would present an even bigger challenge, meaning starting work at least an hour later and dealing with repercussions of that, or coming up with childcare for the morning hours. Thank you very much for your attention and time.
Thank you.
Okay. Someone else with Jacqueline's sign-in, so we'll give them a minute.
Hi, good evening. This is Jennifer DeLippe. I'm at 70 White Oak Shade Lane. I'm no stranger. I was actually not planning to say anything and just really eager to listen to see the progress of where we've come from the last workshop, but thought it was important to clarify because there are, and we're not just a group, it is a lot of people. I'm sorry, it still says Jacqueline Huey Zoo, but I don't know how to change that right now. It's not letting me. In town who, while they support the Board of Ed, are incredibly grateful for the year of school that we have open, simply do not agree that the facts support the current proposed plan, nor that of scenario B, which puts elementary too late in the day and 5th and 6th graders at the bus before 7 a.m. So the point is, we would like to reconsider something better. Those options have been found. They may not be as seamless, but at the end of the day, it is about the health and well-being for all students, including high school. Again, I remind everyone, my son is in 7th grade next year. I would like nothing more in his changing world that it will be easier for him, but not at the sacrifice of our school community's children. So just want to clarify, I know a lot of people like to put words in our mouths about what they think we stand for. It's not against the Board of Ed. We're incredibly grateful. It's about a particular solution. So thank you, and I really look forward to hearing where the progress you've made and what next steps might look like for the well-being of all children. And hopefully we take it as a learning lesson and it's a focus forward and not a repeat of everything we've heard for so long. It's time for forward-looking and progress versus kind of rinse and repeat of what's in the past. So I thank you for your time and look forward to hear what I'm going to hear tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Next we have Carolyn.
Hello, good evening, everybody. My name is Carolyn Ditlevson. I am a parent. I have lived in New Canaan for 7 years. I have a 7th grader, I have a 4th grader, and I have a 1st grader. And I cannot express to you the frustration I felt on Tuesday or Wednesday morning when it was released that the Board of Ed had been, or that a petition had received enough votes to potentially overturn this budget. And we have been fighting for this for 4 years. My 7th grader wakes up so grumpy and like upset every morning. It is just really, we're in the first year of this. We have a long way to go. And I can't imagine having to do this, waking him up every morning at, we're lucky we live close by. 6:45 is not even bad compared to some of the other kids have to wake up at 6:15 to get to school on time. And like I said, I have a 1st grader and he is up and ready to start the day. I think, as Kelly said earlier, it's super important for him to have some downtime in the afternoon to play with neighborhood friends and as well as to play some sports. And I think, to have such a packed evening where it's then, dinner, you got to have dinner and you have to do some kind of activity. There's no time for downtime for the kids. And I think that is just so absolutely important for them, as well as my teen getting enough sleep in the morning. He is so upset. He cannot wait for school to end so he can finally sleep again. And I am really hoping that this 8:30 time change happens for our teens because they 100% need it. And I really support a 7:45 start time, even though 8:15 is perfect right now. I'll take 7:45 in response for my teen to get up later.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for all you've done.
Another Jacqueline here. Okay.
Hi, I'm Jody Azzapardi. I live at 28 Faraday Drive. I have a 15-year-old high school freshman, an 11-year-old in 5th grade at Saks, a 5-year-old in kindergarten at South, and a 3-year-old waiting to go to school. And I'm speaking today in full support of the Board of Education's plan for a change to healthy school start times for all of our students. Next year, I'll still have children at the high school, at Saks and South, and my youngest will go to preschool. As a family, we will have 4 different school start times for many years. We will need to make adjustments to our family's schedule, but it isn't up to the school district to cater to my family's individual needs. The district sets appropriate school hours for all our children, and we adjust as necessary. I think that the changes that they're proposing work best for each set of children. The teens whose sleep cycle trains later needs to start school later, and the younger children learn more effectively earlier in the day, and they need time for fresh air and activity after school before dark. I'm appalled at the idea of a referendum being used to undermine the Board of Education budget, which has already been approved at all levels of town government. I personally was approached 3 times over the past several weeks to sign the petition for the referendum, and each time the messaging that the people who asked me to sign it was really inconsistent with what I know will be the actual impact of the referendum, which only serves to cut an amount out of the overall BOE budget. I feel that the 3 or 4 very vocal opponents of this plan have misled many less informed parents in their efforts to reach the referendum quota. And I think it's a terrible precedent to set that a referendum can be used to protest a specific line item in an already approved BOE budget. I fully support Dr. Lutzi and the entire approved budget, including this change under the new 3-tier structure. And I intend to focus my efforts now on supporting my family and our school communities to help this change occur. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Okay. Next we have James. Okay.
Good evening, everybody. You know me by now. This is James Yao. I too wasn't planning on speaking prior to hearing the results of your further analysis, but I think it's important to mention, as I've heard some of these other people speak, that we support later high school start times. Our children will be there one day as well. So we do not want to sabotage our own future, certainly. And we appreciate the importance of sleep for adolescents. However, we don't think that it should be at the expense of elementary school children. People can say, well, it's too early for me, or it works for me, but facts are facts. This is the earliest elementary school start time in Connecticut. So it's not a matter of debate whether this time is early for elementary schools. It objectively is. Now, in the past, the administration, BOE, said there's no real research on the effect of elementary school children and younger children, right? But the fact is, I provided 10 pieces of separate research just today, and there's much more, specifically warning about the harm that this can cause to elementary school kids. There's precedent, there's research. I don't know what else you need to realize that this can be potentially harmful to our youngest kids. I'm really at a loss. Now, there is a 2-tier scenario which would benefit, I think, the whole town, our whole school community. Why are proponents of the current plan so opposed to this? Why is it so difficult for us to have almost everything for all our children? I'm just really confused at why that's been shut down. I've had a FOIA request to ask on what kind of support there is or why there isn't a 2-tier scenario consideration. And I've been provided no reason, none, zero, nada, on why that isn't a viable option. So I'm just curious why we can't have it all. Why proponents of this plan refuse a potential 15-minute compromise so that all our children can be happy, better off. I mean, I'm just perplexed. If it's just 15 minutes, why people can't concede that? That's all I have to say now. I'm anxious to hear what the administration has to say as well. And I'm keeping my fingers crossed that it's something good. Thank you.
Okay. Another person who signed in is Jacqueline. Let's see.
Hi,
There you go.
my name is Mike Seekhouse. I live on 92 Parish Road, and I am fortunate to have a third grader at West, 2 people at Saks, and freshmen in high school. So this will definitely affect us on all levels, and I am in full support of Dr. Lutzy and the Board of Education. I think you guys have done an incredible job, and we should all be very fortunate that we have you in our corner. I know people are talking about how this is potentially harmful for younger kids. Well, it's definitely harmful for teenagers. That science is out there, it's proven. People are talking about why the 2-tier system doesn't work. I think we've proven that it's 3 times as expensive. So that's a pretty good reason. I think the science is sound, the plan works, the money's allocated. I'd like to move on. I think it's disturbing that we're potentially allowing our schools to be ruled by referendum. You guys are very serious people with very serious credentials, and you've been put in charge of our most important research, the children in this town. And I back you guys. You got me. I think I'm excited to have you. I routinely brag about how great our school system is. And obviously, if you look at the influx of people into this town, the word's getting out, right? I would probably argue the vast majority of people who moved to this town have kids or planning to have kids. And it's because of you guys have really done a phenomenal job at beating our competition in other towns. So, the other day I saw a bunch of high school kids at 6:20 in the morning just trudging along, almost in the dark. And I'm like, these kids have the rest of their lives to get up early and be miserable. Let them sleep now. And the younger kids, when they get home earlier, they're the ones that are most likely going to play outside. Why rush the teenagers back home at 2:30 to potentially sit on a screen or do something else that's slightly less productive? As it is now, we have to rush our third grader at West to sporting events because she gets out at 4 o'clock and it's too late. Other things start. So again, I just want to move on. I feel badly that this has taken so long, but I thank you guys for your continued hard work. And I guess that's it. Thanks again. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay. Amy is next. Amy, go ahead. Should work. Oh. Amy Zinzer. The microphone's not reading anything on this end. Let me go to the next and we'll come back.
Okay, Dr. Lutzy, we're at 15 minutes. Is the board, are we comfortable? Are there just a few more speakers?
I see 2 more hands.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay. So let's try Jacqueline here. Again, we're not getting any reading on the mic. Let me check.
Hi, everyone.
There we go.
This is Namita. Do I have permission to speak?
Yes, please do.
Yes. Hi, this is Namita. I have 2 kids, 4-year-old and a 7-year-old. I did write a big email for Board of Education. So I just want to reiterate my concern. There is a reason why high school kids can start earlier. They can prepare their food, snacks, eat. They can go to bed by themselves. They can take care of themselves. They can do their homework. We don't have to wake them up. Like kids, the elementary kids, we need so much time. I come home by 6 o'clock. How am I expected to do all this with my kids in 1 hour and put them to bed by 7 o'clock? And they need time to play with their siblings, and they spend more time in the after school now. So my 2 kids don't have any time to play. My family time is totally taken away. I do feel like my kids are being taken away from me. I don't know how else to put this. And I don't know how else to, I'm really kind of worried and really, I don't know what else to say, but this is so hard on the whole family and on my kids. So I really, really hope that you consider our situation here, and please, like I said, I do feel like my kids are being taken away from me, and I get 3 hours a day with them as of now. And now with this new plan, I get only 1 hour. which is totally like, I cannot imagine this. And I just sincerely hope you consider this family time and that my kids will spend it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, let's try here. Jacqueline?
Hi, this is Amy Zinzer. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Amy Zinzer, 50 Mariomi Road. As one of the circulators of the petition, I really am personally offended by these allegations that we somehow duped almost 1,000 citizens in our town to sign a referendum by telling them something that's not true. Now, I'm an attorney. I have taken a vow to uphold ethical principles. I fully understand the process here. And I can tell you that none of the people that signed my pages did so under any false pretenses. I explained to them what the referendum was doing. They understood that it was to lower that Board of Education budget. And they also understood that this is the only avenue remaining to us to send a signal to the Board of Ed that the 7:45 start time for elementary school is simply unacceptable for many reasons that have been discussed. And I also wasn't planning to speak tonight. I would like to hear from the Board of Ed about the work that is still going on. But the avalanche of people being trotted out to support the plan made me realize that I needed to speak up as well. So again, as one of the people who supported the referendum, who circulated the petition, it's just not true that we fooled 1,000 people into signing this. Thank you.
Thank you.
One more hand did go up.
Okay, last speaker.
Okay.
Thank you.
Hello.
Yes.
Hi, my name is Vanessa Lowery. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Hi. I'm the mother of 3 children. I currently have a student at West School. I'll reiterate what's been said by many, which is I'm completely grateful for everything the Board of Education has done for our students this year. I, however, wanted to say I, like many people, I guess almost 1,000, did not sign that petition under any false pretenses. I know the people who were out there circulating it were working very hard to provide parents like myself with young children with the accurate information. A lot of us just, as many of us know, raising young kids is exhausting. I'm not clued into what's going on in the world or necessarily in the town. And so, it takes someone sort of getting in my face in the street to sort of, bring my attention to things. But the reason I'm concerned about the current plan that's being circulated is because I just don't see the science. We've heard so much this year about the science backing up everything we do. Now, certainly, as other people have stated, there is science backing up why we need to change the high school start times. And I'm in full support of that with so many other people who have spoken tonight. However, as your own website, the Board of Education's website states, we've used anecdotal evidence to guide our thinking toward the earlier start times for the youngest students. And that's what has me concerned. And I'm going to assume that's what has so many other parents of young children concerned too, is that the science isn't really there supporting why we should, in the case of West School and East School, move the start time up, almost an hour and a half earlier, which is a huge adjustment for young children. So I hope the Board of Education will listen to the feedback from parents like myself and perhaps engage with some of us, and hopefully we can have a plan that just meets the needs of students across the spectrum in our community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, while Dr. Lutzy makes his way back over, we have 3 items under reports and recognition this evening. We'll lead off with the COVID-19 update with Dr. Lutzy and the Cabinet. Then we'll have our discussion and presentation on healthier school start and end times. We'll wrap up with the statement of accounts. So COVID-19 update. I think we have a few presenters on that tonight.
We do. I'm going to bring Jan Murphy over. Where are you, Jan? Oh, Jan may have, oh, I'm going to think that that is Jan raising her hand, and she may be here with Ashley as well. Okay, we have Ashley. Let's see. And let's see, Jan Murphy, if you're out there, if you can raise your hand, I will find you. There you are. It's a little different on the iPad. Keeps me problem solving. There we go. Excellent. All right. Thank you. Briefly, as far as the district is concerned, with update on COVID. As you know, we changed our quarantine expectations about a week ago at this point to go to 7 days with a test out option for folks. That seems to be working very well. Our numbers have gone down week by week and really followed the trends in the county and locally and in the state. So now we've just had a handful of folks who are positive in quarantine. And we're hoping that the day will come before the end of the school year that we're at 0 across the board. So we're doing very well with that. Partnership with the health department continues to be incredibly strong. Wednesday last week, we had 860 students, and most of them in the 12 to 15 age range, receive their first vaccine. Some were from some neighboring towns because there was so much excitement when it went out on my email that it found itself on Facebook pretty quickly. And so folks were clicking from Greenwich and Wilton and Westport and some of the other surrounding towns, but that's fine, because these are all kids that are on the fields together and playing together, and it's a community-wide effort, statewide effort. So we were glad to see that. We have another 1,100 or so signed up for this Wednesday. Some of them are first doses, some are second doses from 3 weeks ago. Again, it's always the Pfizer vaccine for those students. It's the one that is approved to go down to 12 years old. And the report from the DPH is that the pace of approval and review continues to accelerate, and they're optimistic that by the end of the summer, maybe early fall, they are looking forward to potentially having approval for 2 years old and up for the vaccine. We've begun conversations about booster shots a bit in the fall, and some possibility of the school and the health department, again, working together to provide access to those booster shots instead of having it one-off in different places here and there like we do with the flu shot now. So we'd like to partner with, if the state gives us permission to do so, partner with the health department and continue doing that very good work together. All of this continues to operate under the emergency use authorization. And we think that's wonderful, and it's a way that we've been able to expedite all of this and will continue to. But before we can engage in a conversation about expectations of getting the vaccine even, it needs to be fully approved, both for adults and then children and others. So we continue to watch that as well, and then we'll have some policy decisions and discussions ahead of us if and when that occurs to engage in that conversation. We are, along those lines, still eagerly awaiting the guidance from the state on the removal of the religious exemption for vaccinations, and we have not yet received their guidance, which I anticipate all districts in the state will follow. But so far, we're on a great path. We continue to be. The numbers are trending here in school and locally as they are across the state. If you watch Governor Lamont's update again tonight, we're getting closer and closer to numbers that we saw last summer, where we were very low hospitalizations and low numbers. Also, the positivity rate now, because the number of tests has dropped significantly, we would expect that folks who are testing may not feel well. So the positivity rate may even be a little bit lower than what is reported at, because now there's, people are self-selecting into the test. There's less screening testing going on, and the colleges aren't doing screening testing and things like that. So that's good news. I think it was a 1.8 on the news today when he shared it. So those are great numbers, and we're going to keep doing everything we're doing. Last piece, and I'll turn it over to Jan and Ashley to give us a COVID update over at West. And I'll set it up in a minute so you can share your screen as well. mask mandate and the change with the CDC about fully vaccinated people no longer needing to wear masks in certain settings. While that's going to be a phased-in rollout statewide, but for schools, we're going to remain consistent, expect masks in our buildings, regardless of vaccination status from now to the end of the school year. We still go outside to take mask breaks. We allow students, of course, they're eating together and things like that. We're keeping the distance, but what got us here will get us there. So we're going to continue with the same expectations in our schools for adults and students, and look forward to finishing the school year strong. And with that, any questions for me, or I'll turn it over to Jan and Ashley. Okay. Let me see if this lets me. No, let me jump over to the laptop. Sorry, Jan, I'll be right with you. Okay, it's all yours.
Okay, I can share my screen?
Yep, should be all set.
Okay. Okay, can everyone see that?
Perfect.
We're good? Okay, great. Well, I would like to, first of all, introduce myself. I'm Jan Murphy, the principal at West School, with Ashley Fernari, our assistant principal. And it is a pleasure and a privilege to be here tonight to share some of the good work that we've done, again, with our PTC this year, and kind of give you an update, a COVID update, through the lens of our social and emotional intelligence work and our partnership with our parents to try to keep the school year, what we have tapped this year as being called the same but different. So one of the first challenges that we had when we started school back in August was, how can we keep things the same for our students, but also we knew that they were going to be very different. How do we deliver the same high quality school experiences given the environment that we're in? So one of the first things we did as a faculty was we looked at our school charter, and we realized we really didn't have a word. Our school charter is a list of 5 words that sort of describe how we all want to feel when we're working together at West School. And those words were inspired, supported, respected, balanced, and valued. And while those words were great in the past, we felt like we needed to add a word this year, because we knew that if we did not feel safe as a team working together, that we were not ever going to be able to feel inspired, supported, respected, balanced, and valued. So we put that at the top of our list. And then one of the things that I really wanted to highlight this year was the work that we've done, and I speak for probably all of the elementary principals and middle and high school principals, in the fact that we've worked really, really closely with our PTCs and PFAs to provide opportunities for kids that had specific impacts on our school communities that made us feel together and supported. And then how we've made some adjustments to find some really creative solutions to provide experiences for our kids. We all work in partnership with our PTCs to create and maintain an active working relationship, and that consists of parents, teachers, and the administration. And as I said a couple of weeks ago when I was here about our Outdoor Learning Center, we work really hard together to promote a continuing exchange of ideas and information among our parents, teachers, administration. I think even more important this year was the entire community of New Canaan. So I put in our emotional intelligence vision as a district because I think we really focused on this as a school this year, to use the power and the knowledge of emotions and positive relationships to create a healthier, more equitable, productive, and compassionate school community. We knew that we had to focus on the social and emotional needs of our staff and students under that word safe. in order to be able to allow staff to feel supported and to feel, one of the words that we struggle with is balance, and have that balance in our lives. So we began to have conversations with our PTC to find creative solutions. And one of the very first things I'm going to go ahead and let Ashley take over from this slide.
Thanks, Jan. So, one of the things we really wanted, and of course my phone is going to ring right now. So I don't know if we can hear that. So flexible. We've been flexible all year. But one of the things we really wanted to continue to do was to create a sense of community. And we're really proud to say that we were able to do that and provide a safe and welcoming environment for all of our students, including our remote learners. So what we're going to share with you is, we hope the next few slides tell a story about how we've been able to create new and innovative ideas this year. And we've been able to do that by offering all of our families experiences that connect them to our school community, that provide them that social and emotional support that Jan spoke about. And we've really been able to create same but different experiences that we're very proud of. So on this slide here, there's several pictures. And as you can see in the upper left-hand corner is the Bubbles and Brew truck, the coffee truck, that has been a big part of the West School tradition this year, as well as throughout our community. Our PTC has, the PTCs in the community have brought it to each of the elementary schools, middle and high school. And they even, for bus driver appreciation, brought it to the bus drivers. So we've been able to enjoy cappuccinos, lattes, teas, and sweet treats before school. So that was a really nice treat this year. Right below the Bubble and Brew icon is the West School Yetis. So our parents in the past had provided us with coffee each morning in our faculty room, but this year we had to repurpose our faculty room. So the PTC was determined to find another way to be sure the faculty was well supplied with caffeine. So out of their determination came the West School Yeti. And around the holiday time, they gifted each of our faculty members a green Yeti with our school mascot on it. Another wonderful thing our PTC has done is right below, last week or a couple weeks ago, we celebrated Teacher Appreciation Week. So each year we look forward to the amazing luncheons they provide. So again, it's the same great food, but through a different format. We used grab and go to be COVID safe, but we had a wonderful lunch from Valencia in Norwalk last week, along with many other great treats. And then you'll also notice a way to make sure kids feel welcome and have that safe environment is in the upper right-hand corner. We collaborated with the PTC to provide a different form of flexible seating. Each third and fourth grade student was given a stool so that they could pick up their classroom and go to any area. So this is the Outdoor Learning Center, where they're sitting underneath a tree, having an outdoor classroom, but they also go to the back playground, the front loop, wherever there's an available space. So that was a great addition this year. And then also some wonderful pictures that we've shared in the past, but that's our Outdoor Learning Center in phase 1 with decorations in the fall that the PTC brought in. So this has really helped us to feel, going back to our goal, welcome, as well as just really supported throughout the year, our faculty, staff, and students.
So this next slide really tells a story about how one of the goals of our PTC and our school community this year was to bring families experiences that supported a strong sense of school community. We had to develop some criteria. We needed them to be safe, to be fun, to be socially distanced, and to be something that all families could participate in, whether they were remote or whether they were in person. So again, this is not by any means an inclusive list, but these are just some of the highlights that we came up with. The very first activity that really kind of challenged us was we typically have a fall family fun night where all of our families are on the back playground, kind of watching the sunset. We have food trucks, we have an ice cream truck, we have a DJ, and it's just a really fun night. And we knew we couldn't do that. So we had to sort of charge ourselves with what can we do that will be fun for kids, fun for families, and socially distanced. So we came up with our Westies scavenger hunt and car parade, where families were given scavenger hunt clues. They were released on a date in September, and families between 5 and 6:30 drove around town following the clues to look for the pictures of Westie you can see in the upper left-hand corners. And so this provided families with a fun way to communicate with one another via text or phone, take pictures, go on a scavenger hunt, look for Westie throughout town. And in the end, they all ended up in a car parade in our parking lot. And students were given prizes at the end of the evening. And there was an opportunity to take pictures as well. So that was one example. I know I speak for the other schools as well when I talk about the fact that we developed a movie night. We actually got the idea from one of the other elementary schools. So we created a movie night. We held it at the back, in the back of the school. Exactly, I think 32 or 33 cars fit on our back playground. And you can see in the picture to the right, a family enjoying the evening, enjoying the movie Ferdinand in the back of their car. So that provided a nice sense of school community. Although kids could see each other, they weren't close together, they could wave to each other, and they could sort of have that sense of being one big school community. We also had a program that we had existing before COVID called Share a Book, where parents can purchase a book for their child. And I'm not sure if it's because more people were virtual or online this year, but we had a record year of books that were donated to the school. They were donated a favorite book or a favorite title in honor of a child that attends West School. So we had our most successful year to date. So I wanted to make sure to note that COVID didn't stop that. And finally, just another really great example of how the PTC came together to provide families with a great opportunity. They created a virtual pizza and game night. It was just held in March. They joined online. They purchased a pizza kit from Joe's Pizza, cooked their own pizza in their own kitchens, and then logged in to play a game of trivia and bingo after their pizza. So that was just another fun way for students and families to share in the fun and sort of build that sense of community, albeit it was remote and distance, but the kids talked about it at school, and it was a shared experience that I think everyone really enjoyed.
So this slide just captures some of the meaningful experiences our students have participated in throughout the school year. And the top left corner is the Proud to Read Aloud. This year we used the book All Are Welcome, and this was a book recommended by one of our parents. And it really supports our school-wide, or district-wide, I should say, focus on equity. And it celebrates in the book diversity and encourages kids to be themselves and to support that all kids are always welcome and all people are always welcome. And so as the part of the Proud to Read Aloud, we always have a family connection piece. The picture in the middle shows family flags. So each child and their family created a family flag to show how they are unique and what's important to them as a family. And then our wonderful art teacher, Liz Zeiss, worked with students to create self-portraits. And what was truly amazing was as we walked around the building, Jan and I and the teachers and the students, each portrait truly captured the students. Knowing them, you know, we could almost pick out who each child was without looking at their names. So that was a really great experience that the students were able to have. Another was in third grade this year, our third graders in the bottom left corner created lawn signs that really supported our essential workers and said thank you to them for the hard work that they had done throughout this past year. So they created them in class, and then the families distributed them throughout the community. And finally, something each year we would always do, a school service project per grade level. But this year we decided to have, the same, teach the kids through the lens of the same type of service project, but through a different lens, because we did a school-wide project, and students learned the importance of giving back by participating in Blankets for Hope. And it's a nonprofit organization that provides blankets to the homeless. So students, the PTC purchased about 450 blankets, and each child was able to write a personalized note and attach it to the blanket. And then they were distributed by one of our parents to Malta House in Norwalk, which is a housing place for expectant mothers and their babies. So this was such a huge success that we are definitely going to continue this in years, in the future, because it was a way of really pulling our community together to support an amazing cause. And it was a powerful message to our students.
And then this picture, I like to think that it depicts some of the greatest impact of our work together this year with the PTC, with our faculty, our staff, our school, district leadership, and our Board of Education, as well as our whole town community. For recess this year, one of the things that we had as a challenge was finding many different places for cohorts of students to play separate from one another. And we came up with using the front loop of our school as an area for the playground. And one day I was sitting in my office and I happened to see this particular group of students working so hard, working together. They were just collecting the twigs that were in the grassy area in the middle of the loop and putting them together. And it truly just warmed my heart to see them working so well together. And they were so proud of this pile of sticks that they built. So I went outside and asked them to quickly get together. Of course, so they weren't as socially distanced, as they were only like this for a couple of seconds. And I snapped a picture of them. And later on, as I was looking at it, I thought to myself, this really does capture our school year. Because kids have really used these opportunities to form meaningful relationships being in these cohorts all year long. They have experienced more complex friendship challenges than in the past. And as a result, I have seen better conflict resolution strategies because they're starting to learn to feel more comfortable with that, the way they feel when they do have a problem. One thing that they've really taken away from all of this in the conversations I've had with students is that friendships can be really hard work. And every time there's a challenge, we find solutions. They're really, really proud of the fact that they were able to resolve some of the conflicts and move on. We've noticed an increase in the amount of empathy and compassion for one another. Students are very quick to forgive a classmate and say, I know you're really a good kid, things like that. So these relationships and friendships that they've built have become stronger, more solid. And I think as a result, students have really learned to embrace some of those challenges when they encounter them and find creative solutions when they happen. So this picture really, to me, captured the sense of pride and accomplishment that I think all of us in New Canaan are feeling. This pile of sticks sort of became the metaphor for our school year, how our students used a creative solution for having fun at recess. It took a group of disconnected and mixed up and confused school year, sort of symbolizes those twigs, and they turned it into a tidy pile by working together to do something quote unquote new, just like we did this school year. So we hope that our students have learned life lessons on resiliency, working together, and making the ordinary into something extraordinary. Just as our students work together to create this bundle, we have worked together with our PTC, our administration, our parents, our students, and the entire New Canaan community to build this really strong sense of school community. And it's really, as Dr. Lutzy always says, it is the most important work on the planet. So I just thought I would share a few of those moments with you so that you know that it was really a team effort this year. I know I'm the last principal to present this year, but it truly has been a remarkable year. And I always tend to see what I like to say, the unintended outcomes, and some of them have been really, really positive. So thank you for allowing us to share a little bit of this, and I'm happy to take any questions if we have any.
Thank you, Mrs. Murphy and Mrs. Fornari. So heartwarming to see all those pictures and the stories come to life. Any questions or comments from the board? Okay. Thank you for all your hard work, and thank you to the PTCs and all the parents who made it possible. It's really special and heartwarming, and I especially love the end story about the bundle. It's great. Thank you. Okay. Moving on to, waiting on.
Thank you.
The
Janet,
feedback is back.
I will change your roles back to attendees. And there we go. Again, just briefly say how amazing it is. They're so creative, right? There we go. There we go. Nope. Even in a year where we can't have folks coming into the building and doing things, they're finding ways to stay connected and keep that spirit strong. It's really amazing. Great, great presentation. Okay.
It's here to stay. All right, moving on to presentation on healthier school start and end times. Dr. Lutzy.
Yes. And again, my apologies to folks at home who aren't hearing this, if you don't hear it, but there's an awful lot of feedback here in the room. So I'll work my way through. Okay, I'll do my best to speak quickly. I know there's an awful lot of slides in front of you. Most of them are very short, but I just felt important to have a couple of refreshers and then to get into discussion together, Q&A, and et cetera. But before I begin, I do want to say thank you to Roy Walder, who's here with us tonight. What you're going to see here, the slides, the pictures, the charts, he does the work. We're so lucky to have him. I'll be here to sort of do my small part, but all of this work is thanks to Roy. As you know, we've brought in 2 different consultants to take a look at things, and both times they looked at everything that we're doing, they looked at different options and said, you run an incredibly efficient operation. If you remember all the way back to 2017, we were talking about just trying to tweak some time, and they said that time's not available because Roy already has optimized your system so well. And throughout this entire journey, he's been an incredible partner to go back to the drawing board, to create, to recreate, to look at things, and none of this would be possible without him. So Roy, thank you for being here. He also gets here probably earlier than anyone else in the district. And when I mentioned the meeting tonight, I told him he could dial in from home, and he said, well, I'll just come. Because he cares so much, is so dedicated to everything that we do, and knows so much. So thank you, Roy. Thanks for being here. Thanks for all of this. This is Roy's data, my voice, and we'll open up to Q&A in a little bit. Of course, I want to say thanks to the board, to the administrators, to everybody that's been working on this from the very beginning. Again, I'll move quickly through, and I caught myself that I wrote May 17th, 2020. And so my apologies for that. I think that may be the only slip, hopefully, in it, but it's 2021. So here we go. Very briefly. Quick recap on some of the reality, right? We're working in time and space, and we've talked about that being our biggest constraint. The New Canaan roads, a couple of things to notice when you look at them: many dead-end streets, which mean buses turning around. We're surrounded by multiple towns. We've talked at length about the 125 or so miles of roads that we have, that most of the roads are 25 miles an hour, that there are many cul-de-sacs and neighborhoods throughout, which is part of what makes New Canaan great. It's also part of what challenges the transportation system. Sometimes, and we'll talk about it briefly, but you'll see where the stops are, we have to pick up at the house, go into another town, drive for a while till we find a suitable place to turn around, and then turn around. So we've got some runs that take, Roy's told me, 7 or 8 minutes to go into another town, turn around, and get back. And that's just the reality of the way the roads are built, the way the buses work, and where we're situated. As far as what roads buses go down or where stops are located, how long students walk to get to schools, all of those are guided by Board of Education policies that were voted upon back, I believe, sometime in the mid-2000s, 2005, 6, 7, around that time. It's difficult work to do that. I think we found a good balance. We use the state guidelines, but also customize it a bit for our community and our needs. And it took some resettling when those policies were shifted, but we seem to be in a good place as far as that goes now. And again, all of it's on our website for people who want to learn more. Some of those policies say students can't cross state roads, right? Most of our roads are 25 miles an hour, except the state roads. And we know that even if it's 45 or 55 on those roads, people can go a lot faster. The Board of Ed, I think, made a wise decision years ago to say, if it's a state road, the student cannot be crossing in front of the bus to get to the house. I know sometimes that's a hardship for some families because the bus goes right by the house, drops off more kids, and then comes back before the student gets off. But we also have limits on the duration of our bus rides. So we manage that well. And we have to always put safety first and prioritize that.
Dr. Lutzy,
yes.
Are you able to share screen so that the viewers
can
see it?
Yeah, I don't see why not. Okay, we'll add a little more complexity.
Sorry, I didn't want to throw one more curveball at you tonight.
No.
But...
I can figure this out. No worries. Let me do that. It will be on our website, but let me. Here we go. Oh, I don't know whose screen they're going to get. They'll probably get mine. So let me. I'm sorry. Why can't I see this? Sorry. I've lost the mouse. There it is. Okay. Okay. Okay, is that working for folks at home? Darlene
I
shaking
see
her head,
Darlene.
yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
All right, sure, my apologies. Okay, so here are the roads. Moving on, so what does that mean for us? Just, this is a couple years ago, but I imagine the distribution probably hasn't changed all that much. We saw the roads and the layout, but here you see on the left are where our SAC students live, and the right are our bus routes themselves. And there are few, if any, roads where we don't have at least a pickup. Oh. All right, thank you. I'm gonna have to run it that way. You have the handouts, so I'll have to just do it through here. Try that one more time. Guess it's the best we got. Let's see, again, my apologies. All right, there's an easier way. Give me a sec. Okay.
My understanding is that Channel 79 has the screens. So if people, we could ask people to watch it there.
This should work.
Okay.
Okay. Is that working?
Yes.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Oh, absolutely. Okay. So again, there are the bus runs. I know you've seen these charts before, so I won't belabor the point, but we have our high school folks, our students, a couple of years ago where they live, and again, where these bus routes are. And important to note here for our high school students, we have fewer students that we pick up because they opt in the junior and senior year. So of course, the high school numbers are lower than, say, SACS, where we have the highest ridership. Roy's taught me a lot through the years. Elementary bus riders, or bus routes, again, you'll see the whole town is blanketed. And I wanted to just show you this quickly because I think it helps us just to focus on a real challenge. So the challenges of the kind of space-time, where kids are, how the roads work, how it all goes, we've solved that currently by developing the system that we have in place, right? Our 3-tier system that puts the high school and SACS first, SACS 5, 6, and South second, and East and West third. We've talked about the school start times, but as we've said multiple times, it's really about bus pickup times. And so this chart highlights sort of in our current system what the earliest bus pickup time is which is 6:30 on the chart, and it's plus or minus, say, 2 or how it goes. So we've talked about 6:28. And what the average pickup time is, which is 6:40 in that first tier in our current system. Now, as you'll recall, when you're doing this work, you've got your start times, but it's really your end times that drive your start times, because in a start time, you drop and go. You pick up your kids, drop them, and then your bus keeps rolling out. And there's a window of time that you're dropping them off before the start time. But at the end of the day, you load the buses after the end of the school day. So you've got a window of time where kids get onto the buses, and the buses have to roll out of the lot. And that's especially true at the high school, the middle school. In the elementaries, we stage them and we facilitate that, but it still takes time. It's not that the buses are rolling and every child's on the bus when the bell rings at the very end of the day, right? It just doesn't work that way. So it's the time you need between the runs at the end of the day that really feeds into where you place the start times and how much room you need in between the different tiers. Okay, getting technical, but just to kind of set that baseline. So we saw this in our current program. We said we need to do better than this. Again, the research is very strong, and I don't think a single person has said that our secondary students, 7 through 12, are on the right time or on the right tier. So we said we need to fix this. And it doesn't work to do that when you have a mask on. Okay, so as we were learning, Judith Owens is one of the people and one of the names that we've learned quite a bit from. And so there's a couple of slides in here that I attribute to her in a presentation she gave up in Massachusetts a few years ago, and talked about, again, why this is so important. And it's really, in large part, about a shift in the circadian rhythms with age and the onset of puberty for kids. And what happens is their body, she calls it the forbidden zone, but their bodies sort of ramp up generally until you get to that 11 o'clock, and then sort of fall off and melatonin's produced and they start to be able to go to sleep. So as you see on the third bullet, it's not that they choose to stay up, it's the physiology of what's happening with them. They can't make themselves fall asleep earlier. Their bodies just aren't working that way. And having raised, or being in the middle of raising 2 teenagers, I get it. My daughter came home from college the other day, and I turned to Jody last night and said, I forgot how sleep deprived I get when they're home. Because they're loud, they're noisy, they're around, they're just not asleep, they don't sleep. Anyway, but in the morning I get even. The environmental factors with kids and some of the challenges, of course. Our students, they want to do well, they work hard, they prioritize school, they prioritize their activities, there's so many pressures on them to perform well. And all those sort of pressures and those competing priorities are generally all going to win out over sleep. They work hard, they do well, and we love them for it. But they're not going to prioritize their health. Kids don't generally do that. We need to create a system that's healthier for them, which is what this is all about. Okay. Now, the elementary start times, we talk, again, the AAP has research around this. There's lots of other research around this. And Judith Owens, in her work, and again, she is the director of sleep medicine at Boston Children's, talks about 9 through 12 hours, the circadian preference, an owl versus a lark. You know all about all of those things. One of the differences is, as opposed to adolescents, they're biologically, environmentally, and socially more amenable to manipulation of bedtimes. So you can move their sleep times easier than you can adolescents because of the circadian rhythm and what's happening through puberty for the adolescents. So again, is there a sweet spot? In her presentation, she talked about 7:30 to 9. That you have to watch, make sure that earlier start times don't have a negative impact on kids. And issues of civil twilight and safety concerns. We've talked about civil twilight at a workshop before. I'm just very, very briefly going to touch on it here. So what civil twilight means is that period of time in the morning and in the evening when the sun has gone down or hasn't quite come up, but the light from the sun is enough so that you can perform most outdoor activities without an external source. You can still sometimes see a planet or two in the sky, but your headlights aren't on, and it's a thing. People, I've seen something saying that you're making this up or whatever. I'm not making it up. This is a thing. It exists just like nautical twilight does. There's all different types, but civil twilight is pretty widely used as the time that you should feel relatively comfortable having students at a bus stop because you can see, as if it's clear. If it's a stormy, dark day, It doesn't matter what time the sun comes up if it's behind thunderclouds, right? That's different. But civil twilight, there's the source, timeanddate.com. So what that really, why that matters, and you'll see this in the slide. My apologies for folks looking at this page. And again, all of these will be on the website soon. Why that matters is, if you look at this, I pulled up January of 2021. So this past January, where the sunrise and the sunset are the latest. Seems to be the latest right at the turn of the new year. A couple of late days in December, but not later than 7/17. And look across, and you see 6:46 a.m. for when at the start of civil twilight, and then 5:05 p.m., right? So that's the day. That's where at 6:46, you would open your windows and there'd be light coming in, even though the sun wouldn't yet come up. Hasn't yet come up. If you can go all the way down to almost the bottom of the page, where that civil twilight is 6:40 a.m., and if you go back to the slide that just briefly summed up our current program, you'll see that, excuse me, at that time, 6:40 a.m. is the average time that our kids are picked up. So half of our kids are waiting for the bus stop in the dark before civil twilight comes for most of January and parts of December in our current system. That's not okay, right? As a board, as a community, as a district, we don't want kids waiting, no matter what their age, waiting in the dark, and that's why civil twilight's important. We also used these data and looking at this to make that assertion that no student picked up before 7 a.m. means that no one's ever waiting in the dark. And so we're looking at 7:17 a.m., which is the latest, or one of the latest times, and the civil twilight hitting at 6:46. So not only is that you're in the midst of civil twilight, but it gets brighter and brighter and brighter as sunrise approaches, right? So you're 15 minutes into it or more by your very first pickup, which is, again, something that we felt very strongly about as a guiding principle. We didn't want students to wait in the dark. So, as you know, I can go a lot deeper into the why this is so important, why we've been so committed, but you've been on this journey with me for all these years too. So shift a little, and that's how we came up with a couple different scenarios. And as you know, we've looked at and tossed aside many scenarios through the years. I think 12, 14. I don't ask Roy that question because he had to build every one of them. So we've had a lot of sort of trial and error, right? Because we believe, as we're doing this work, that we want to try everything that we can. We want to try, it's a design thinking approach. We know that, if we build something out, even if it's not the plan, we might learn something from doing that we can apply to another, bring people together. All of the meetings, you've been a part of them, you know what we've been doing. So these three scenarios, we're now calling them plan A, B, and C. They could just as easily be 13, 17, and 21. Plan A, B, and C. Plan A is what we've been discussing with the 3 elementaries at 7:45. The SACS 7, 8, and the high school, so grades 7 through 12 at 8:30, and then SACS 5, 6 at 9:15. We kept the 15 minutes in between, as we've said from the beginning, and then when the decision's made and we're going in a direction, we'll look to optimize and do some other work to see if there's time. But always remembering it's what happens at the end of the day that drives the time you need between the tiers. So then we also wanted to build out and take another look at Plan B, as we're calling it, which really is, it flips the SACS 5, 6 in the elementary, as you know. And then Plan C, which is the 2-tier plan, where we're looking at upper division high school and south, and then 5, 6 east and west. So we're going to just walk through these very quickly and then open up to Q&A. The planned arrival time is important because, as you know, the buses, the window of opportunity to drop the students off in the morning has a direct impact on the pickup time for those kids. So now at the high school, for instance, there's a large window of time. It's a large building, and students have to be able to get to their classes and travel. In this scenario, in all scenarios, we're looking at shortening that time. Students will have less time in the CAF and will likely be dropped and be going straight to class. I think the administration will love that plan. I think kids that drive themselves will continue to come in early because I've got plenty of stories about that. I won't take the time now. Other constraints around Sachs Middle School and the facility itself, that's been a big one. As you know, we had tried to build out scenarios where we have Sachs all in the same tier. Just doesn't work. Facility doesn't work. The staffing model doesn't work. Scheduling, there are lots of constraints around it, but the facility really put a hard stop on that. We haven't talked much, but it's true, and many of you have experienced this firsthand. The traffic over at West is another constraint we have to keep in mind. You know, West is right in a residential area, right on Ponus. You've got traffic that backs up every day, and managing that and keeping that flow. The limited access there is a real problem. As we're thinking about things, you've probably all been hearing, as I have, about the labor shortage that's happening in unfilled jobs. You know, when we talk about adding buses, sure, there's a cost in the bus and the capital expense, but we also have to always think about the labor piece as well, being able to identify and hire drivers to do additional work. You know, there may come a time where the labor shortage, disappears, but right now we're in the middle of it. So we've got to just at least, have that in mind. And then our ridership is down due to COVID, as you know, but we have to build our system anticipating we'll get back up to the levels we were at pre-COVID. And we're pretty confident that that's going to happen. So a couple of things to keep in mind. Glad to answer any questions at this point or talk anything else about constraints or anything, or we'll go right into the scenarios. Okay? Mm-hmm. Okay. So scenario A, again, bad PowerPoint etiquette, but wanted to just show you the start and end, and this is sort of the splash screen on Roy's system as he's building these things out. What it does show us is so in scenario A, the lower left-hand box, you see the 7:45 bell time. You see the 7:35 a.m. is the earliest arrival. Latest arrival at 7:40, so it's just that 5 minutes to drop and get to the class, okay? And then on the other side of the day, bell time at the 2:15, and this is when the buses would get there and start rolling. And you see, this is what I meant before, the latest departure time is 2:20, so it's 5 minutes after the bell, after the end of the day. And that's, I know, Roy, you're tight on 2 minutes to load the buses. And it can take longer than that, but we figure those things out. But these are all of the sort of factors that go into the build. And the same goes with the high school, with Sachs 7-8, and then Sachs 5-6. And again, it's probably easiest to move to the right to the grade 5-6 at Sachs with a 9:15 bell time. Earliest arrival 9:05, latest 9:10. And then you get into your bell time, your arrival time, latest arrival time, latest departure at 3:58 with 2 minutes. So again, you wind up art and science, right? The science is knowing how buses work, knowing the loading time, and the art is me saying, can't we go down from 2.5 minutes to load the buses to just 2 minutes? And we're trying to figure out how to make that happen. Again, Roy, thank you so much for putting all this together and sharing all of it with us. So the Plan A, our earliest scheduled pickup with Plan A would be 7:10 in the morning. Again, I would say if you go over to that, the Civil Twilight and the latest, when the light comes, 7:10 is really just a couple of minutes before full sunrise, which was 7:15 in the longest day, I believe. So it's after 7, certainly 7:10. Average first pickup by bus, the 7:19. Again, you see it here. And then the second tier and the third tier as they get pushed out. Average route time is 20 minutes for the elementary. Max is 30. And again, one of the advantages to scenario A in the morning is you're capitalizing on the neighborhood elementary schools that we have. So those buses aren't traveling the entire town. You can see a couple of other thoughts here. Now, what it means for us, the largest tier is our first tier with our elementaries. And that's balanced with our high school 7-8 that we're using a couple extra buses. And then we don't need all of the buses for the last tier. I'm going to show you in a moment why that's important. And you can see the rest of the thoughts that are here. I'm sorry, everybody. Forgot about our folks at home. My apologies on this. And again, I will be sending this out as soon as we are done. A couple of thoughts. So if we look here, again, I don't expect you to be reading it, looking at the numbers. That's what Roy's been doing for years here. These are charts that he builds. I just want you to look at the colors for a moment. And as you look to the far right where we have the SACS 5-6, this is the, again, scenario A, and you'll see grayed out are the buses that we don't need in that last scenario. So one of the efficiencies that we're able to capture here is the buses on the longest runs in that middle tier. We're looking to, they don't need to be back at SACS on time because we have excess capacity of buses. Another efficiency we can capture here, or opportunity, I guess might be a better word for it, is with these buses not needed on the last tier, they become available for trips for our athletic teams, for other activities that are happening at the end of the school day. And right now, if you may very well be aware, there's a real shortage to find drivers and buses for those activities. And we've had to cancel some and bring in others and do all kinds of things to make those work. It's changed a little with COVID, certainly this year, but just a year ago and back, it's been a real challenge. So this scenario, one of the opportunities we liked in it was that that excess capacity on that third tier provided for that. The salmon color, is that salmon? Pinkish, orangish, those colors, that's where there's a challenge. If you take a look at those times, the buses aren't getting in on time for the load. And so it might be off by a minute or two, or maybe in a couple of more. And that's the area where we do continued work, right, to further optimize this. So if you flip the page, I think it's very telling. The elementary pickup in the scenario A. You see the very first dot there, the first child, the furthest out, would be at 7:10 in the morning. And you see that by 7:23, 7:24, only 25% of our elementary students have been picked up. You go out to 7:28 and you're at half. 3/4 are picked up by 7:32, and then everybody's dropped off by that 7:40 number. But it kind of just shows the cumulative pickup times for our kids in this scenario. Flip the page for me. And again, this is the PM runs for this scenario A. And you'll see the gray again for those excess capacity, and you see the salmon colored for buses we'd have to work on to optimize that. Again, important part here, our delivery home, because we don't want anyone getting home in the dark either. And you'll see that half the students are delivered home by 4:10 in the afternoon. The very latest student is getting home at 4:29. And then at 75% by 4:15 or so. Okay? We went back and speaking with some of the teachers, speaking with administrators and a few others, asked them to just sort of put some thoughts down. And that's what we have here with scenario A, opportunities and constraints. Again, welcome to take a look at it. It's similar conversations to what we've been having. As you'll recall, a year ago, January, Dr. Carenti and I went and spoke with all of the staff multiple times throughout the month to get their feedback. We're finding the same. So, some concerns around after-school care for students, about, the time in the morning, the older siblings not being available for care if need be, the shift for students that are at East and West now, and possible, commuting time things for teachers. Opportunities being the efficiencies that are in there, a few of which I've mentioned, the opportunities in the afternoon for the elementary students to do different things, the alignment of the 3 elementary schools for after-school programming, alignment of the schools for professional learning, and you can see a couple of the others there. So that's the quickest version I've ever done. Again, I apologize that I'm not keeping up with the slides. I'll do that. But a couple of things around scenario A. I'm glad to stop or keep going into B and C and then take it all at once. Keep going? Okay. So we'll go into B. And so what B does, as we mentioned, is flip the 5, 6, and the 3 elementaries. Again, same chart here, same tables that show us the bell time, the earliest arrival, the latest arrival, the loading times, and the defaults, and these kinds of data that drive the analysis. When you get into B, again, a couple of just thoughts about that. Earliest pickup time, average pickup time. You'll see it's a little bit earlier than the earliest pickup time for the elementary because you're no longer capturing the efficiency of the neighborhood school. Now you have to canvass the entire town for that first tier. And we have some extra capacity in the buses, so we're able to shorten it but it's still 7:05 instead of 7:10. The staggering the buses, or staging the buses, let's see, okay. So similar to the other chart, you'll see the gray on the left instead of on the right because we've got excess capacity of buses in the morning. And then you see the salmon colored where we've got a few constraints in the morning. Nothing, similar to scenario A, certainly not more. If we look at the 5-6 pickup time in the morning, 7:05, the 25% of the students are by 7:19, 50% by 7:25, and then 75% by 7:30. And that's to get them there for the 7:45 start. Okay? It does get a little bit more challenging in the afternoon because now we've got the excess capacity, but we're only using it, it only exists in the first tier, so we can't use it as optimally as we do in scenario A, and that's reflected in on the far right, all of the times that are highlighted there. So those are, again, times where the departure might be at 3:50, but the bus can't get there till 3:55 according to our routing right now. We'd have to just keep working on that. Okay? So again, just wanted to give you that visual. And then the delivery home for the Plan B. And you see it here. It gets us a quarter of them are home before 4, half of them by 4:04, 75% by 4:09, 4:10, and then everything else trails out to 4:31. And again, these are the elementary students who in scenario B are on the third tier. So we're delivering home almost 1,300 kids from the 3 schools, which is why it takes a little bit longer. And their loading time and what have you. So scenario B, again, some opportunities and constraints. You can take a look there. It does continue to prioritize sleep. It could provide opportunities for the older students to be home for childcare for the younger students. It's less disruptive for East and West, more disruptive for South. And the, again, you'll see it here. It puts the 2 grades at that earliest time, 5 and 6, instead of the 5 grades if you go K5. You can see also there's concern about the quality of the instructional time for the youngest learners if they're on the third tier. Scenario C. Okay, this goes from 3 tiers to 2 tiers. The first would be starting at 8:15. The second, believe we could do it at 9:05. That's a little tighter than what Mark had done when he came with TAS, but Roy continues to work the numbers. So it's an 8:15 start for the South and 7:12, and then 9:10 for 5-6 East and West. Earliest pickup there is 7:30. And you see the planned arrival times and pieces there. Let's see. When we asked TAS, Transportation Advisory Services, to build this out for us, again, a couple of years ago, and we continue to refine. I think an important number just to note on the bottom of the increase over current cost, you're looking at a 42 or 43% increase of the overall transportation budget. The 8:15 start with the 3 schools, the 9:10 here. Again, Roy has his numbers, I think, working at 9:05. Probably tightening up the drop-off window a little bit probably helped to get there too. And the numbers of vehicles that are required. Some pros and cons or opportunities and constraints. The starting the high school a little bit earlier could be helpful for early dismissals or other things. It does still prioritize sleep for the high schoolers, less complicated to route, less disruptive across the system with East and West still later in the day. There's cost and space and labor questions around it, certainly. We're significantly more buses. Concerns around traffic. The South and Farm intersection can be a challenge already. Some concerns around the number of walkers that are all coming in at the same time and the buses. We lose the alignment between the elementary schools, and it could be difficult to share staff across those schools. It doesn't meet the goal of an 8:30 start. And so, when you go back to those earliest pickup times, you're talking about a 7:30 pickup time for the earliest time. I know that there's been some conversation about this. It's pretty consistent in the recommendations from the AAP and others, that 8:30 seems to be the recommendation, the strongest recommendation. They say if it's not necessarily 8:30 or bust, but that is their recommendation to do that. And you can see some of the others. So last page, and then we'll open it up, is again, back to Dr. Owens, Director of Sleep Medicine up in Boston Children's. And she's done this work with districts around Massachusetts area. Some of them have made some changes. And I thought it was important there are districts that have common constraints. They're always a little bit different, the size of a town, other things. But you don't always have to completely reinvent the wheel as you're doing this. Time for families to become informed, make plans prior to implementation. Unique challenges. I had some questions about Greenwich and what did Greenwich do, and while it's a really interesting exercise, it's really not relevant to our problem solving because it's a different town, different constraints, different challenges, different needs. So we learn from others' experiences, but we still always need to apply it locally to our context. Not all students benefit equally. The goal is to provide the greatest good for the greatest number of students. Anticipation is often worse than reality, and I've talked to a number of superintendents who have led and worked with their district through this change, and that's something I commonly hear, right? It's always sort of the fear of the unknown. People have reset, and then those challenges are reduced over time as people sort of live in the new space. So I just thought that some of those lessons learned could be very helpful. I'm going to take a breath. I'm going to offer if anyone else wants to fill in any blanks or anything that I missed, and glad to have a discussion together with Roy at my side.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Lutzy, and thank you, Roy. I echo on behalf of the board, thank you for all of your analysis. I know it's very time consuming and it's much appreciated. Brennan, you had your hand raised?
Thanks. Yeah, I just wanted to highlight, these are one of the reasons why we moved through this pretty quickly, is that this is all repetitive, just about, as compared to the things that we've looked at in the past, just so everybody knows. But I had one just quick question on the number of buses for the two-tier scenario C. It looked like we need, I'm looking at the third to last page, I think, or fourth to last page. Looks like we would need 51 buses in aggregate, and that compares to scenario A and B, I think, which would require 41. So I just wanted to confirm that was the right takeaway.
Yes,
Yes.
correct.
Okay, so an
Yes.
extra 10 buses.
The 10 additional buses.
Yeah, so if I were to think about a rough cost estimate of a two-tier, each bus is around 100,000.
Yeah, they're up a little.
Yeah.
They're probably 115 at this point.
Okay, all right, so we're talking about another 1.2 million roughly as compared to our, current plan for next year, once we make the change, which would be either A or B. So it would be up roughly 17 buses as compared to where we are today.
That's right.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
Sherry?
So first, I just want to say that I now know more about sleep science than I ever thought I would or would like to. But also, I thought it was interesting because we've obviously received a lot of emails from the public and parents, and we read them all. And there were a couple emails reminding me that actually the district first looked at this back in 2006. So we've been talking about the 4 years that when we revisited, and that we've been studying for the past 4 years, but actually this conversation has been going on for much longer in our community. For me, I just have to repeat, because this is so important to me, that currently in our current system, our earliest pickup is at 6:30, and about half of our students are waiting in the dark. And I just had to repeat that again, because I just really want that to soak into everyone listening, because I think that's clearly far from ideal. I mean, it's dangerous, in fact. And
they'll do that for 6 years if they ride the bus.
Right.
7 through 12.
and not all of them are yet drinking coffee.
We hope not.
But in any of these scenarios, we're moving to a schedule where our earliest pickup would be 7:05, 7:10, which means that no one would be waiting in the dark. So I just think that's really important to emphasize. I actually did want to ask you, Dr. Leslie, a question about which of these three scenarios do you feel optimizes the elementary student learners? Because I think we've had a lot of discussion. We've heard a lot of, evidence from teachers about, the elementary and their ideal time for their learning is in the morning. But which of these schedules do you feel optimizes the elementary student?
Mm-hmm.
Their learning, from their learning standpoint.
Mm-hmm. So I can echo what you're saying about our secondary students as someone who spent most of his career in a high school and as a high school principal. With that specific question, I think back to the conversations we've had at our elementary schools when Jill and I were going to all three of them multiple times, talking with people in large groups and small groups and other things. And we consistently heard from our teachers that the best time to teach the students was in the morning. And we heard that from East and West, talking about trying to get everything done as quickly as they can because of what happens later. And we heard that from South. We even heard it from a couple of people over at West who taught early morning enrichment programs. And they started at 7:45, even a little bit earlier, I think, some of them. And they said the work that they're producing, what they're doing, they were creating newspapers, they were doing journalism, they were doing other things. And they said it really is amazing, the quality of the work when the students are there, and it's that early in the morning. So I learned a lot in all of those conversations, and I came away really feeling that the morning was the more optimal time for those kids. I worry, to be blunt, I worry with a 9:10 or a 9:15 start. That's a long block of time for students who may be getting up, just their natural rhythm. They may be getting up at 6 o'clock in the morning. They may be getting up even at 6:30. And that's a long time to go before going into a school and being asked to, engage with their learning. So that's where Judith Owen's work was informative as well, a bit, when she talked about, granted, there's some that will sleep in. There's some owls and some larks. But at that age, there are more larks than owls. And they have, they're more malleable in their sleep patterns. So it was pretty resounding. And Jill, you're welcome to elaborate any more if you like, but it was very consistent feedback. I can't recall a single person who said, 9:10 is the right time. We want to stay with 9:10 because it's the best time for kids to learn. We did have a few say, it's the way that I've created my schedule for my family, and I don't want to shift because that's hard. But I know that, if we're going to make the move, it's for the reasons that I just said. So those conversations happened.
Thank you.
Sure. Katrina, I think Bob has a question.
Oh, hi, Bob. Go ahead.
Hey. Thanks again for the recap. I completely get the early morning and kids learning better in the morning. Right now, East School is like 9:05, I think, which is only 10 minutes different than the two-tier proposal.
8:05.
So it seems like, I'm sure East has been doing okay with their students. So I don't think we would have had something in place for these many years if it was, it didn't work. I'm not advocating necessarily for two-tier, but what I am advocating for is, I'm not sure what the goal of this, if in this meeting we're going to try to work the problem to get to a different place, or we're just going to reiterate what's already out there. But I do think moving this to 8 o'clock or figuring out a way to get this to 8 o'clock makes a lot of people happy. It makes it earlier. And I think it makes, the elementary parents that are looking at a 7:45 start time, they will be much happier if we get closer to 8 o'clock with the 3-tier program that we're suggesting. If we're not, then, what if I was to say, what's the unlimited, we had unlimited resources, would we go with the 2-tier? I mean, then that just basically makes the elementary schools that start at 9-10 look like East School today, which is, I haven't heard any issues there. So I don't know, is the plan to try to make this closer to 8 o'clock or just to keep it at 7:45? What is the goal of tonight? Is tonight to try to work the problem, or is it just to restate what's going on?
Well, what I would propose that we use tonight for is just to understand these 3 scenarios to the best of our ability, ask all the questions that we have, and I think it's a lot of information, and I would propose we have a little time to digest it all and come back together at our next meeting and have a more meaningful discussion and reach a conclusion as to how we want to move forward as a board.
Okay.
If everyone's okay with that.
Yeah, and I just a quick follow-up question, or statement in question. Certainly we want to get that first tier in the scenario A, whichever one it is, A or B, to be as close to 8 o'clock as we can. I guess, in the thinking about it though, I mentioned before, there's a trade-off, right? So are we comfortable moving all of the tiers out? Because that's, sort of, there's an interdependency there at that end of the day for loading the buses, getting the kids home, getting the buses back to the next location to be loaded. So, I think that we probably, I don't want to speak. Roy's here. Would you like to talk about that a little bit? No? I'm doing okay? All right, I'm doing okay by going to Roy. So, question, 8:30 has been a target for our middle tier on A and B because it's sort of the minimum based upon the research that we see. And we know how busy our high schoolers are and our 7th and 8th graders after school. So as we push that, we have, and I should have said this before I didn't, but I know you're aware, we've taken 5 minutes down from the day. So it's 6:35 today. This goes to 6:30 day. And that helps us at the end of the day too. So just at all of the levels. You may see some districts that seem to have like a 25-minute time between a tier in the morning. Like how can they drop at 7:55? How can they start at 7:55 and have the high school start at 8:20? And the way they do that in some places like Massachusetts, I've seen, their high school day is actually longer than their elementary day. So they're in school longer, so at the end of the day, they have more time between the tiers that allows those buses. And that's sort of what I mentioned before. It's not the morning time that sets your time, it's your afternoon constraints. So I don't know, is there an appetite? I mean, we can try to look at it all ways and see, can we go from 7:45 to 7:50? And try to keep working the problem that way. We did have that Mark come out from Denver last year to take a look at this to see what kind of time he could buy. And I think his name was Mark. And we had TAS take a look at some things for us too. But we're glad to keep trying to see what we can do to get there.
Yeah, I mean, I would advocate for pushing the system, in every way possible to get as close to 8 as possible. So if 7:50 is achievable, I think that's a good place to be, a better place to be if for options A and B.
Yeah, to my understanding, to get to 8 o'clock, your second tier's got to be 8:40. I mean, you've got to be 8:40 at the earliest, maybe even 8:45. So that's the push that gets hard, and that's just a constraint. But we'll keep trying. We'll see what we can do.
Okay. Brendan?
Yeah, I'm totally supportive of trying to get as close as we can to 8 o'clock, though I'm reminded about, all of the high school after-school activities and jobs and things like that were a pressure point. So I think, could we move it 5 minutes or something like that? Maybe. But I know that, I'm pretty sure when we looked at it last year, the year before, that we were starting to run into with transportation to sports and other things, particularly later in the fall, running into, darkness and not being able to get things in. So we just have to, figure out whether that's a real constraint as well.
Jen, go ahead.
So I would also like to thank Roy and Brian, obviously, and everyone that's worked so hard on this. This was a great presentation, just a refresher on everything that we've been talking about. And reiterate, we so appreciate all the emails that have come in and you know, I can assure you that all of us really just want what's best for our kids. That's why we're all here. Brian, you're so passionate about our kids and their well-being. You always have been. So, you know, ultimately that's the goal, right? So, you know, we'll get there. I just have a question, and I know we've talked about this a long time ago, and this year has been like upside down. But, you know, clearly California passed that state law, what, like, was it 2 years ago at this point? I don't even remember. Have you heard anything? I mean, I don't even know if they talked about this or.
Great question, because as you'll recall, Connecticut had something, a bill that was in draft and was looking at middle schools and high schools starting at 8:30 or later, and, you know, was looking to force the issue. It all sort of hit a big pause. I'm sure it won't. I'm sure it'll continue, it'll pick back up as COVID, you know, sort of no longer dominates all of our lives and time. I will say there are some districts that have made the change this year. I've spoken to a couple of those superintendents, and so that work does still continue. But as far as the legislative process, I think has not, as far as I know, certainly here in Connecticut. Although I do anticipate it'll be picked back up when regular session gets back into the flow. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Sherry. So also just another question, just in the spirit of just trying to make progress on this and the conversation. So I know it was over a year ago where we had eliminated what we're now calling scenario C, which is the two-tier structure, because of what Brendan pointed out, that two-tier structure requires 10 additional buses, so it'd be an incremental 1.2 million per school year. And I think there were many board members who felt that that was not tenable to our budget. And I think, you know, both Dr. Lutzy and Katrina, the chair, indicated that would not be tenable to the town bodies who approve our budget. So I'm just wondering, you know, if just in the sake of progressing and trying to focus on, you know, viable options, have people changed their views on that? And go ahead.
I personally haven't, and I'd even put aside the cost. I know I wanted that clarification, but I think just as importantly, we're not getting to the 8:30 time for the high school. We would also have South and East and West on different tiers, just like they are today, and I think they'd be. Is it farther apart? No, I think it's the same in terms of the breadth between them. But to me, it doesn't really solve the problems that we're trying to solve with the start time changes. In addition to the fact that it costs a heck of a lot more. And then I think, we're definitely not traffic experts, but it puts a lot of pressure, I think, on the middle of town, which probably makes just create some additional challenges that we'd need to think through if we had to go to a two-tier. So again, like, even if we said as a board, we love a two-tier scenario, to go and say we need, an extra 10 buses, I just don't think practically we're going to get that through when we have an alternative that we've all talked about, that we believe, at least in the past, we've said we believe is better. It wouldn't make a whole lot of sense to say, hey, we're going to get an extra 17 buses for all that costs, and it's suboptimal. So those are my thoughts.
Okay, Penny, did you?
So I know there are a number of high-performing, school districts outside of Massachusetts that have gone to I think it's a 7:55 a.m. start for their elementaries, and with bus pickups similarly. About the start time might be a little bit later, but the school bus pickup time, actually, I think when I was on the websites, were 7 a.m. or 7:05 for the earliest for the elementary. And I was wondering if you'd been able to get any information from those school districts about how that's working for the elementary students and for the families. Because I believe that there are probably a similar number of dual working families in those districts.
Sure. I was hoping to have a conversation with more. I did have a long conversation with one superintendent there who they changed this year, did exactly what you're saying at 7:55 with a 7 o'clock first pickup. They just put it in place this year. he said, nobody noticed. Like, we did this, it worked, everyone's coming in, people adjusted very quickly to it. He's one of the districts where the high school then started at 8:25. And I asked, how can you do that so closely? And that's, the high school is in school longer. Massachusetts law requires more hours of instruction at the secondary level than at the elementary level. So they're able to make that work that way. He said that there are always challenges with making this change, and his process had challenges. It worked for some, it didn't work for all. But he did say that the teachers were strong advocates of that morning time. And the way that they're able to schedule with that time and use it. He said that was a big driver for them, and did, it meant a lot for them to get the teacher feedback about all of that. They had looked at it for a couple of years. Again, Judith Owens, Dr. Owen, who's up there, was involved a bit, I believe, in some conversations, and it was very positive. He said they're having an excellent year. It's all going very well. And, a couple of bumps in the beginning, they sorted those out quickly and were able to optimize it. So it was a very positive conversation. And he invited, a board member to call or contact one of his board members, I think it's the chair, and have a conversation as well. And I've reached out to no avail at this point to some other superintendents who've also recently made the change. I'll have to keep trying to do so, or maybe we'll try some board members there too. Yep.
Great.
But it was it was an inspiring conversation.
Well, and the Wayland district, from which you have the slides, they had made that switch to 7:55 too, I think.
Yes, I believe they did. Yep.
Yeah, and Dover, Sherborne.
Yep.
Changed to 7:50, I believe, or 7:45.
I think that's right.
Yeah.
Yep.
This year as well. So there seemed to be a string of schools in Boston making that similar change.
Yep. So I do think, it could be helpful to have some conversations with some folks on the board and elsewhere that were involved firsthand in those changes. So I'll keep working to try to facilitate that between now and our next conversation.
Yeah, thank you. That's great.
Sure.
Other questions, comments? Go ahead.
Sorry, just one more. And I'm going to direct this question more towards Roy. So I know Dr. Lutzy described kind of the design thinking approach, and that we've been studying this from every possible angle for the past 4 years, and we've now looked at something like 18 to 20 different scenarios. My question, Roy, would be, so if we push this off and give you another year, could you possibly miraculously come up with, do you feel like this has been exhausted, the research has been done, we are looking, between A, B, and possibly C, at the best possible solutions for the district and the roads that you cover?
I think you've asked this question before, Sherry.
Would you like?
I'm fully immersed in Groundhog Day. Like, we've had all of this conversation before.
Thank you for that question. I was hoping somebody would ask. There's a couple of points that I think is important here. The first is that there's a space-time issue, and that is we need 50 minutes, because of the road structure in New Canaan and the time it takes us to get from point A to point B, we need 50 minutes between start times on different tiers. So one of the questions was, can we move it out 5 more minutes or 10 more minutes? And my answer is, yes, we could, but we got to push it out on the back side as well. So if you want to move the front 10 minutes, then that third tier is going to have to move out 10 minutes as well as the second tier. Now, maybe that's what we want to do, but that's the challenge. There's no way to really compress it unless you want to start going to more and more buses, because you'd have to take trips where some buses wouldn't be able to do 3 tiers, as an example. Okay, I don't know after going through all these, I don't know that another year is going to make me any smarter in terms of how to figure out how to do it better. I think I've worked about all the magic I can out of this to get it down to what we've got it at right now. And these proposals. I don't know if that answers the question, but
No, it answers it perfectly, and really, you've done all this work. I just wanted you to give you a shot at the microphone, because you hung around, you're here, you've got all the expertise. Thank you. No, it's perfect. Thank you, Roy.
thank you.
I have a question, which maybe it's not, I think it's a Roy question. Could you describe, just in either the current or the scenario A and B, if we're thinking about Saks, South and the high school, the number of buses that are exiting at approximately within like how many minutes, either entering or exiting those three schools within a certain block of time, and then how that compares to like the tier 2, just roughly?
Well, if with the tier, as an example, with the tier 2 scenario, which is Plan C, there we're going to have buses leaving Saks, high school, and South simultaneously, also entering simultaneously. So it's going to be a traffic problem that's going to probably cause delays. And it's very difficult to figure out how much a bus is going to be delayed coming up Farm Road or coming down South Avenue or whatever. But I guarantee you it will happen, and it will probably cause some of the buses to end up being late. As you know, Farm Road, South Avenue, 106, those are all commuting roads for people going to work on the Merritt and other areas. And so we're going to be constantly fighting that traffic as well. Now, we did have a solution this year for the high school that helped, I think, enormously, and that was the road that went out through the park. Did help with the traffic on Farm Road. And it will certainly help next year, depending on what we pick as a solution. But there's still going to be the extra traffic of South and high school potentially at the same time, and that's going to be a problem because they're all.
Can I ask, why wouldn't we put like west or east instead of south, instead of having the confluence of buses in that one area?
I think what the decision was that we were trying to have the least amount of change as possible, and South was already operating a little earlier. So rather than flip one of the east or west schools earlier and then make South go later, we didn't think that was a good choice.
Is there a different number of buses at South because of all the walkers?
Yeah, and South has fewer buses simply because it's, first of all, the district is smaller, and we are able, and the houses seem to be closer together, so we can actually put a few more kids on a school bus.
And we have the walkers.
And we have walkers, that's right.
So if you put South later and east or west in, you might need additional buses.
Well, I was thinking like east, right? East is probably the closer. I don't know. I mean, I guess it's either one, but you know, having all those schools empty out in that same intersection, if that's like an issue, I mean, maybe considering moving one of the other ones as opposed to, you know, maybe that's a solution that's workable. I don't know.
That's possible. I mean, that's what we want to pursue.
I mean, I think at this point, I would think everything is on the table, right? To make whatever work.
Absolutely.
Including, you know, moving another school around.
So Bob, if I may, we did take a look at the number of buses that were being utilized to keep it as efficient. Their East School, if I have my numbers in front of me correctly, has 3 more buses than South. And that first tier on the 2-tier system maxes out with South at 51 buses. So if we needed 3 additional buses for East, that would bring the total fleet up to 54.
Got it.
So I was wondering, in terms of scenario A and B, we're still talking about a 745, but we've said we think we can get to 750. How confident are you that you think 750, when you really work it, will be the solution? Because we do want to get it, we would want to get it as close to 8 a.m. as possible. And actually, 750 did make it onto a couple of slides. I noticed.
You know, And Roy, I'll let you, because you're the expert here, but also, as we build these, part of it is living in it too, to see what the traffic issues or flow or like what other things. And so whatever, scenario we design and optimize, then there'll be some living in it, and then there may be some tweaks that come based on what we learned from that. And we're able to maybe find some different opportunities that, between traffic or other things. So there, it's when the decision's made with the sort of the order, it'll be a longer process of kind of figuring out exactly those best times. We could move it to 7:50 and leave everything exactly where it is, and then kids would just be dropped off, 10 minutes instead of 5 minutes prior to the start. But again, it's the other side of the day that's your bigger challenge, which is bringing the kids home. So we have to keep working it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that is one opportunity, as with any of the scenarios with the April implementation that you spoke about last at the workshop.
Mm-hmm.
And
right, we can live in it for a little while and then
optimize it for fall.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess, have we looked at any scenarios where I wasn't like being able to juggle it quickly enough with what we have, where if we added 5 minutes, kept the school day 5 minutes longer at one of the schools, if it helps any of the scenarios? It wasn't seeming like it did. I mean, we're making the school day 6 hours and 30 minutes.
Right.
From 6:35, and I couldn't see where if you added 5 minutes to anybody's school day, it was helping us.
Yeah, because really you'd have to, if you add to one tier, you have to add it to the tier after that, right? So let's say we added it back to the high school, that would create more time at the end of the day, and you could do maybe something a little earlier with the elementary, but then at the end of the day, they're out 5 minutes later, and that afternoon time for the high school is already a little tight. I don't love 3 o'clock. I'd like it to be, closer to 2:50 if possible, but you just can't do it. So I wouldn't like it to go further past 3 if you added 5 minutes there. But if you did, and that'd be perfectly fine if the board thought that was the right thing to do, we'd have to do the same at Saks with the 5-6, because it would cascade, right? So we could do it, if you left the elementaries at 6:30, let's say, and added 5 minutes this day, you could pick that 5 minutes up in the morning to go a little bit later, but then your dismissal for the second and third tier would both be 5 minutes later.
It's not going to help us. Okay.
And you go the other way, shorten the day by 5 or 10 minutes? I mean, that's the other end of it.
Mm-hmm. We're taking them down by the 5. We'd have to look at where that puts us as far as instructional hours go. I wouldn't want to shorten the high school day at this point because there's the 900 minimum. We are going to the block schedule, so that helps with passing time. And that's why,
Sure.
I think it's okay with coming down the 5 minutes. Dr. Krenti, you're an expert in scheduling all things elementary.
I think that we heard loud and clear from the high school staff that they didn't want to have the day shortened either. So I think that was important. When we go back to that focus group, they talked about, the amount of time that instruction could be cut. So I think if we were to go past that 5 minutes, I think that they would have a difficult time fulfilling their curriculum needs that they do in their current schedule. The elementary folks are always looking for more time. So as it is now, you have to always build in that transition time. So it takes longer for them to pack up. It takes longer for them to get to their buses. It takes longer for them to move from place to place. So I think we want to be careful with trying to shorten the elementary day, because as it is now, we have a very difficult time fitting in all that we need to fit in. And that's including all of their cores, plus those natural breaks that kids need to go to music and to art and to physical fitness. We also are trying to implement health. So there's just a lot in their day already. So to try to shorten an elementary school day, I just don't think would be feasible.
One more question on the tier 2, the 2-tier. How many bus drivers in total would we need to hire net new for vans, buses, everything?
Well, for Plan A or B, we will have to hire an incremental 7 drivers for the buses. We've been working hard to hire extra drivers this year, and we've managed to get 3 more drivers, but unfortunately, we had 3 leave. So we've been able to maintain what we were doing, but we haven't made a whole lot of ground. So quite honestly, I'm concerned about whether we can get 7 more drivers. We're going to try like heck to do it, but there just aren't people that are applying. And I don't know how to make them, unfortunately. Pardon?
How about scenario C?
Scenario C, I mean, we're talking there about a total of maybe 15, 16 drivers, something like that. And I'm pretty sure we can't do that, quite honestly. I mean, it'll be tough enough trying to get 7 more. Trying to double that number will be extremely difficult.
Thank you.
And Roy, I think we're going to also need spare drivers as we add more drivers into the mix for the regular routes.
Yeah, we always want to have spare drivers, but part of the problem is that with COVID and everything, we had drivers out during the year and we had to replace them when people were out. There's people that have had surgeries. I had one driver who decided he wanted to stay at home and homeschool his children. I mean, it's great. Not so good for us, but it's great for him.
Yeah.
All right,
Absolutely.
and that's the kind of thing you run into, and it's very hard to predict exactly where that's going to happen. And the labor, quite honestly, the problem is that there may be some people that want to be bus drivers, but they live quite a distance away. So the question is, can we get them to commute all the way to New Canaan to be a bus driver? And that's a challenge. You know, plus at the time of the day, they're having to commute. And keep in mind, being a bus driver is like it's a full-time job, but it's only a job for about 6 hours a day. And it's 3 in the morning, and a break, and then 3 in the afternoon. And for a lot of people, they don't want to go through that kind of an arrangement. They'd much rather have an 8-hour day where they can work the entire time.
Sure.
So those are just the challenges of trying to find the right people to do the right job. We've been very fortunate that we've got a great cadre of drivers who know the town of New Canaan. And that's very helpful because they know the kids, they know the families, they know the streets. And when you talk about hiring 7 more people, there's going to be a big learning curve for those 7 people, figuring out where to go and how to get there. If you have a power outage or a tree down or something, how do they get around it? Where do they go? Those are all the challenges that you have with having new people. Okay?
Thank you.
Any other?
Thank you for being here tonight with us. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, unless anyone else has anything to add, we'll move on to the statement of accounts. Dr. Keating?
Right. Am I able to share the screen, Brian?
Yes, Joanne, I believe you are.
Okay, thank you. All right. So we have 2 months of statements of accounts. The first is March, and then the second would be April. So I'll take them individually. There are no transfers in either one of these statements. We are basically moving forward as planned through the reforecast. So through the end of March, we spent 64.1% of the budget. 29.8 is encumbered primarily in salaries. And we have an additional 6.1 that is yet to be either expended or encumbered. And this is very consistent, again, with the reforecast. Just to mention, we do have included in all these line items, in addition to what we've spent through the special appropriation, $348,000 roughly in expenditures for COVID-19 related expenses. And we're looking right now to continue to use operating budget for any additional expenses in COVID through the end of the year. And this is mainly for supplies in the schools. And then we still continue to forecast $1,017,000 as an end balance unused to go back to the town. So I'll move over to the April report. Whoops. Here we go. So through April, you're going
Joanne,
to see
we're
the
still on the
expended.
march. You want to stop this share and then do a new share of April.
Oh, that's right. Okay. I got to stop sharing. Okay. I had the same problem this morning, I think.
Yeah, but I can't run up to your house this time.
Yeah, you can't run to my house, that's right. Is that good?
Perfect.
I think that, okay, thank you. You taught me good this morning. So with regards to expended, we were going up a little bit, 71.8% of the budget. Encumbrance number goes down obviously a little as we're paying people and paying our bills to 23%. And then we have 5.2% of the budget remaining unspent or unencumbered as of April 30th. And as you can see down in the bottom, the expenditures for COVID did go up slightly to 373. Again, there's nothing unusual about any of the financials for the last 2 months. In May, we will be doing a reforecast again, as we do each time at this time each year, and maybe bringing some transfers before you for that report. Happy to answer any questions.
No questions? Okay, thanks for the update. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, are you ready? Comments from the public. So again, if you'd like to speak, please use the raise hand feature in Zoom.
Okay. So Jacqueline.
Mystery.
Here we go again. Yep, all good. Let's see. Okay. Someone signed in as Jacqueline raised their hand, and you should be able to speak. And you have a picture of kids on a slip and slide or an inflatable. No?
Hey.
There you go.
Am I?
Yeah.
There. Am I unmuted?
You're all set.
Okay.
Please state your name.
This is James Bash. I have a couple comments. One is regarding the number of buses. So I believe it was mentioned tonight that there would be 51 buses that were needed. I'm wondering why that changed from 47 according to the TIS study. I think that should be followed up on. I think the amount of research that's been done on elementary school start times, there's been a wide breadth of research, including that by James Yao, and the preponderance of the evidence clearly shows that there's potential cognitive and behavioral issues with a start time that's being contemplated at 7:45. I think that needs to be studied more. I thought it was extremely superficial, that one research slide on elementary school times, and showed some bias. I also didn't hear anything tonight regarding after the school care costs. So if we move to the contemplated plan and we have an 80-minute earlier end time of the day for East and West from 3:35 to 2:15 in the afternoon, let's just come up with a rough estimate of how much the costs associated with that are. Let's say it's around $50 a day over the course of roughly 182 days. That's around $9,000. So why wasn't that mentioned tonight? I just thought so much of tonight was just selective use of data, cherry picking data. And I think it's really unfortunate because I would hope that we would have a much more comprehensive conversation incorporating the viewpoints of a lot of the residents that you heard from tonight, and a much more well-rounded look at the research for elementary school start times. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay. James? There you go.
I guess good evening again. I have to say I was pleasantly surprised that there was some more thorough analysis on scenario 2. I'm just curious why scenario 2 isn't the leading option, as it is unquestionably the best alternative for the overall health of our students. I mean, I don't know why. Is scenario 2 not the option for 15 minutes for high school kids because it's not exactly 8:30? Because that's kind of what I'm hearing. And you're saying about 1,000 elementary school kids have to have the earliest time in Connecticut. They have to fight for 5 minutes to get to 7:50 as opposed to 7:45. While high school kids get 45 minutes and you're complaining that they don't get a full hour. I just don't see how that's at all reasonable, equitable, or makes any sense. And I don't know if it is truly a health issue, as the Board of Ed and the administration have claimed, then shouldn't we find a way to get it done, even if it costs a little more money, if it truly is a health issue that you claim it is? In addition, I'm also disappointed, as James Bash was, at the mentioning of research only on one side of the picture, right? I provide you 10 separate pieces of research. You mentioned Judith Owens. I can roll off 10 to 15 names of research that specifically warns against this. Yet you don't mention any of that. I'm just questioning whether your analysis, it seems like you've kind of approached this backwards and finding a scenario A, and then finding anything you can to support that scenario, and anything that is contrary to that, you either discount or ignore. And I just don't think that's the way to have an objective analysis of a scenario you choose that is actually supposed to be the best for all students in our town. Again, I just want to stress that I think scenario 2 is obviously the best for our children. 15 minutes aside, it is the best alternative for all our kids. I don't even know how you can dispute that. Thank you, and I just hope you consider that in your analysis.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have Jennifer.
Hi, it's Jennifer DeLippi again. Thank you. Sorry, I still can't figure out how to change. Oh, genius. Someone changed my name. Thank you. I guess it's no surprise I'm disappointed that we went through a lot of the same. There is no doubt there's been a tremendous amount of work, but to say that our town is not willing to look at the difference between what is approximately $1 million and 1.3, 1.2 and change, whatever it is, for the health and well-being of all of our students, and worth a little looking outside the aisle to the people who can help, whether they're traffic engineers, whether it is extra spots for buses, I'm trying to find the right word and be extremely respectful. It's really abhorrent. It's not right. These are our children. I know you know that. Not asking is not finishing the job. And all these families are doing is asking you to go, not backwards, not to revisit where we were, but to go forward, better, and not hope and wish you get to 8 o'clock. Because Dr. Lutzy, I don't know how you can. Even you've said that with all your best intentions. Even the fine print on these slides said, well, I mean, these times are radically different over 2 consultants. What changed? So sorry if we don't trust it. It's just been too much of a look back, not enough different, and not enough for the overwhelming majority of all our students. So I really, really hope, and I still am optimistic we can get to something good, just incredibly disappointed in where we netted out this evening. Though I do realize that was a ton of work. I had just wished the effort was placed a little differently. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we have someone who signed in as Jacqueline.
Hi everyone, Namita again. So just to kind of echo the sentiments about the option to the scenario B, I really truly feel that that is the least disruptive for all the schools like Saks and East and West. So everybody can start at 9:05, which is a little bit earlier than now, but 10 minutes. And kind of gives that extra time for the elementary students. Like I said, I know the research about elementary school students learning better in the earlier has mentioned many times, but what I'm telling you is the elementary school kids spending time with parents and their siblings, that is so very important. I really want all of you to please, please, please consider my point, because I don't see that is being considered. All is being considered is kids are getting tired at the end of the day, but 3:45 is not that late. My kids, like, they can play till 11, 12, they're never tired. So I kind of find it very hard to believe that 3:45 is kind of late and kids don't learn because they're tired. I cannot trust that, because I see all the kids and how active they are. So like I said, thank you so much. I know there's a lot of work going on, but I just want, please put yourself in the shoes of a parent who has 2 elementary school kids and who misses them so much. And they work all day. And remember that, you know what, you get the time to spend with your kids and you're making your life better. You're working so hard, which is okay. You're making your children's life better. And what do we get? No time with our kids. What are we working for? So please, please, please consider that. And I'm okay with scenario B or C, totally fine, as long as I get time with my kids. Thank you very much. Again, thank you so very much for all of you for spending time on this and working on this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. We had a hand up, but I think it just went down. Okay.
Okay. Announcements and future business. Dr. Lutz, would you like to take that one from the podium, or?
I'm here.
Okay.
I'll be short. Yeah, our next meeting is June 7th. At that meeting, we generally will honor our retirees. We'll have our CABE award winners. We will re-engage in our discussion here, I'm sure. And right now, our retirees, I think we're still looking at 2. Darlene, is that correct? Two staff members, teachers who've retired? Yep. So we have our 2 CABE award winners as well. So in some years, we've had 10 or 12. So it'll be a light year this year. We also have Diane Murphy, who's retiring after an awfully long time here as our athletic trainer. And so I'd like to invite her to come to this meeting as well to just recognize her for the great work she's done.
Yeah, that would be great. Okay, thank you. With that, motion to adjourn. Sherry, second. Jen, all in favor? All right, thanks, everyone. Have a good night.
Okay, thank you.
Good night. Thank you.
Bye, Bob.